And the largest school district in the state is welcoming kids back tomorrow. But this year, the big issue on the table is whether police officers should be returning to Seattle campuses. The district removed school resource officers in 2020 following nationwide protests after George Floyd's death. Now the school board is considering a one-year pilot program that would bring them back, starting at Garfield High School. And joining us this morning is Seattle Police Chief Shon Barnes. Thanks so much for being here to talk about this.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
You have a really unique perspective because before you got into law enforcement, not only were you a teacher, you were a school resource officer, and you actually ran that program. So how does your background give you and shape you in terms of how you view the role of officers in schools?
Yeah, I have a unique perspective, starting as a public high school history teacher many years ago. My perspective is that school should always be a sanctuary, it should be a safe place for people. I know that a lot of people are changing their lives through education. You can only do that in a safe and orderly environment. And anything that I can do, whether formal or informal, to make sure that our kids feel safe and that they know that there's a place for them in this community and that they're supported by the adults, I'm going to do that. Yeah, school engagement officers is the title that the district is going with these SROs. Some groups, like the student union, is sort of pushing back on this idea, saying it can create a hostile environment to have uniformed police officers in the schools. What do you say to those students who are worried about that? Well, I would say that we have not had school resource or school engagement officers in school here in Seattle in over 5 years. So none of those students have any direct experience. And I think it's about what the officers will be doing and how they will be engaging that will make the most difference.
We've been talking a lot about bringing back school resource officers for the last few years, and when Jake and I interviewed interim police chief Sue Rohr about this, she said, bringing back officers in schools is really about creating relationships with the students. That's what makes a difference, and you were just telling us off camera during the commercial break about an example of that. I want you to share that because I think that that's so important.
Sure. When I was a public school teacher, I had a very smart student, very promising student, and one day he didn't show up, and I found out that I lost that student to gun violence. I've spoken about this before, and it turns out that school was his sanctuary. It was where he could go and get a meal. It was where he could go and study and think to how he can change his life through education. And so it's so important that we provide a safe and orderly environment, not just for the students, but also for the staff, for the teachers, and I've seen that firsthand. As a public school teacher and then as an SRO. And then when I supervised the SRO, we began collecting data on the things that we actually did, those relationships, those resources, diverting people away from the criminal justice system.
But there's a lot of students of color who are really concerned about, being unfairly disciplined by officers, being targeted because of their race. And so what do you say about that as a person of color and their concerns about that?
Yeah, I say that all concerns are valid, but I will also say that school resource officers, school engagement officers should never be involved in school discipline. And making sure that we have a memorandum of understanding that the teachers, principals, and students and the officers know that we're not there for that. That is still the responsibility of the school staff. We're there for relationship building, for education. We're there to make sure that there's no outside influences that do not belong on campus that are ever there.
The Seattle School Board's going to vote on the SRO issue on September 17th. Before you go, though, I'd be remiss to not ask about school safety. Even beyond the school hallways in Garfield High School, there is still an unsolved murder of a student there, several other incidents. Can you assure parents that what's happening in the neighborhoods around these districts is also, schools is also a safe place?
Absolutely. I can assure them that school resource officers or engagement officers will have the campus, but they'll also have the surrounding community. Anyone who knows me knows I'm a big fan of neighborhood-oriented policing, making sure that officers have a geographical area that is their own, that they take ownership with, and the school engagement program will be no different.
And in those circumstances, like Jake mentioned, I just have to ask, if there were to be an active shooter on campus or some sort of, a threat, how would that school resource officer, what is their role in that type of situation?
So their role will be the same as any officer. We have to have fast, quick response, coordinated response. Unfortunately, this is something that I had to navigate last December, the week that I was going to be announced as the interim chief of police. On that Monday, I believe we had a school shooting in Wisconsin, as chief of police. And that is a a situation that I don't want for anyone. And so anything that I can do to prevent that, whether it's providing officers, having emphasis patrol, increasing our communication with people, I want to do that. And simply put, for our students that are going back to school, if something doesn't feel right, find any adult, any parent, any teacher, any staff member, and please let them know what you're thinking and what you're saying.
See something, say something, as
Absolutely,
they say, right?
yes.
Police Chief Shon Barnes with Seattle Police. I hope that you come back. We have a lot
Sure.
more to talk about.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.